Anurag is a dynamic leader in the world of data-driven strategy and decision-making. With his extensive experience in P&L management, go-to-market strategy, and AI consulting, he is the definition of a game changer. He built EXL's analytics practice for the U.S. community financial institution market from the ground up and has a history of unlocking revenue potential across marketing, risk analysis, and operations. Beyond his professional role, he also hosts a podcast called The Women of Community Banking that highlights women leadership achievements in credit unions and community banks, supporting diverse voices within the financial sector. Please welcome my dear friend and fellow AI enthusiast, Anurag. Welcome.
Thanks a lot, Noah. It's an absolute pleasure being in your podcast. I'm stoked to be invited. So, hi everyone. Thank you. Thank you, Noah, once again.
Of course, a lot of the inspiration that I draw from for this podcast, the Why Not podcast, is from the amazing work you've done. I mentioned you have a podcast on the impact that women have in community and credit union banking, or community banking and credit unions, I should say. And so I'm stoked. You reached out as I've been slowly releasing new episodes, and I was like, oh my goodness, like, am I ready to have the legend on the podcast? Because I feel like I listen to yours, and you're very natural at this. So this is the first time I've had someone that hosts their own podcast, multiple now. You have two, and so I'm very excited to dive in and to help the audience get to know you better.
No, this was, I would say, too kind of you, right? Definitely I'm not a motivation or inspiration. What you're doing amazing, fantastic. I'm very proud of what you're doing, both at your personal and professional life. And this podcast on top of it is an icing on the cake. I wish all
Thank
the
you.
best, and I'm very proud of what you're doing.
Thank you, my friend. I appreciate that. That means a lot. Thank you. To start out on this podcast, I'd like to hear your story, and I'd like to hear it from the lens of how you are who you are today. Like, what has led to the current or like that we know?
It's been a long story, right? It's essentially, I always keep on talking about this single statement that, I'm from India. So in India, essentially what happens, you either study medicine or you do engineering or you're a failure. So I always wanted to become a failure. I didn't want to do engineering or medicine, either of them. But I was just, put into the groove. Did engineering, was a computer engineer, to realize that I'm a horrible computer engineer, and realize doing something else, right? So my story comes from my engineering days. What true inspiration of myself, I loved meeting new people, loved networking, loved solving actual problems, not hypothetical problems that I was facing back in the classroom, right? But outside classroom, how can we solve actual problems, operational challenges,
Mm.
organizing functions, events down there in my engineering school. So that started. Then again, in my second year of my engineering, I started working part-time, started doing B2C sales. I never thought that I'll be able to ever do sales, but by God's grace, I was able to do sales then. That was like long back, 2013. Again, graduated, joined Accenture, did consulting for like 6 years to realize that yes, that this is what my call is, of solving real problem, not hypothetical textbookish problem. So I loved it. So almost for six years. I was mainly into working with Fortune 500 clients, like the oil and gas, the telco, retailers, to soon realize that this is not a zero sum game, right? I want to do something that's more meaningful, that's more personally fulfilling to me.
Mm.
And then I realized that I could work with the big banks, I could work with the big financial institutions, oil and gas corporations. But am I driving impact at a personal level? Do I feel happy at the end of the day? I was like, might be not. I stumbled upon credit unions, what credit unions do, what community banks do. And I was amazed. I was like, yes,
Mm.
I think I finally got my calling. This is what suits me both as a personality, one, as someone who is passionate about helping people. One, definitely that's what my passion is. And second, also, not only just helping people, but helping financial institutions compete against the larger players, helping them compete and use data more efficiently, for decisioning. So I could marry both my passions, helping using data for decisioning as well as helping people. I had both of them, and I thought, let's do it. It'll be fun. So just a couple of years back, I took up this role at EXL, and personally, I had zero customers because the first question is like, "Who is Anurag? We don't know you." I'm like, "Okay, you don't know me. That's fine. Let's try knowing each other, right?" So I was
Yeah.
absolutely candid to people like John Huntinghouse, like,
Yeah.
thank you, right? People like John, people like Hayden and leaders, I was absolutely transparent that, guys, I don't know how it works, but I know how to use data for decisioning. People trusted
Mm.
me. People trusted a newcomer, someone quoted someone on the outside circuit. People trusted me and started working with me. That's the time I realized I should be more thankful towards what I do every
Mm.
single day. And that's what I practice. So yeah, long story short, that's who I am right now. And I think you gave a wonderful, fantastic introduction. Wow, that's helpful.
Well, I appreciate you walking through your story, and it's inspiring. I think there's so much value we can dive into from everything you just said. Let's start with you talked about wanting to see the impact you made. And of course, you've had excellent C-suite clients. Like you said, Fortune 500, you've worked with very well-established businesses. You are very well respected in the data world as well. And I think I'd like to understand more your thought process on helping smaller businesses, helping the little guys in the financial sector, because I think that's a refreshing and positive attitude you bring to the space. I think sometimes there can be a lack of that in finance, and I think that's a very wonderful, unique attribute you bring to the table. So help me understand that a little bit more and what you're hoping to do there. And feel free to reference your work with your other podcast as well.
No, I just want to talk about the like few instances that led me take this decision, right? So today I
Mm,
can go to Chime. I can open an account in 3 minutes, in under 3 minutes, right?
mm,
I can walk down to a branch of a Chase that's like next door, right?
mm,
And I can get everything at a fingertip. The question I asked myself multiple times, right? That what will motivate me to walk up to
mm,
the nearest credit union or the nearest community bank? Is it
mm,
only the rates? Or if I want a mortgage, if I want an auto, just because I'm not getting a mortgage from a bigger bank, will I go to a credit union? Is that a good enough reason?
mm.
I honestly thought that's not right. There has to be reason because of which someone like me and you or Gen Zs will again walk out or again open an account in a community financial institution. And I want to make community banking sexy again. Now, how do you go and do it?
Yeah.
One is hyper personalization, right? I mean, I'm a strong believer of hyper personalization. It means that you do not sell products to your consumers, but serve your
Mm,
consumers and reach out to them with the product that they would require. Right? If I'm an immigrant, for example, today, has there been a credit union who has reached out to me and telling me, Anurag, welcome to the US. We can trust you basis your credit score back in India and we'll give you a credit card? No, right? Has there been any community financial institution reaching out to me and asking me that, Anurag, you stay in New York, you earn X amount of money. Do you need help to buy your next mortgage or to get a new auto loan? Not really. Even if they have reached out, it seemed like a spam, like for most of the people
mm,
getting spam emails. I want
yeah.
to change that. I want to
Mm,
change how community financial institutions serve end consumers and become a trusted advisor. That's one.
mm,
Second, if you look at the digital experience or the customer experience or the member experience, an end consumer of a community FI and compare it with Chase, you can never compete with the Chase because they spend $15 million every year into the
mm,
technology spends, right? But still, can't we be better? We can be better. It can be better
mm,
if the mindset changes. If people like you and me come to the forefront, not
mm,
challenge the status quo, but help people understand that, guys, the future is us.
mm,
Average age of a consumer in a community financial institution is not like 47 to 51. Average age of a US consumer is 38. That's a definite huge gap that you can see. Someone
mm,
like a Noah or Anurag to come in, things have to change. And I want to be one of the flag bearers of that change, of becoming or making community banking sexy again by hyper personalization, improving experience. Because still at the end of the day, looking at typical researchers, right? A Gen Z or a lower end of a millennial like me and you, we still need a branch nearby, right? I mean, it's not that there will be no branches. So how to make branches sexy again? How to make branches relevant to
Mm.
what you have to offer, right? The other three things I want to focus on for the next few years. That's what my one and only intent. I never thought that I just deep dive so much into this because I was working with Fortune 500s, working with them, solving multiple problems. But when I saw the scale at which this problem exists, there are 4,500 community banks, 4,500 credit unions. I feel I have a family of 9,000 institutions who need help. That's my intent. I'll try my best to do whatever is possible to keep these guys up and running and help them.
Wow. The mic drop moment right there. It's a beautiful
Thank
message. And you're absolutely right. We're in an era where things are going to become more and more personalized. People have so many options, like in the financial sector, especially, but really every industry right now. There's a lot of options, and so much of it has just been institutionalized in such a way that it's almost a conveyor belt where you're just a number or a cog in the machine. And when it comes to money, especially in terms of how you portray your brand and business, but also the actual relationship, there's need for exactly what you're saying. There's a need to make it personalized. There's a need to improve that experience, but that comes with a lot of change, and change
you.
can be hard. If there's something you would want on the small community bank and credit union side to change, like our mentality, our philosophy, our approach. What do you want us to change? Because I think there's the need you said, but you're the one finding solutions to this problem. So what's the change you want?
I think first is mindset.
Mm,
We need to think we are good. We should
mm,
not play it small, right? I mean, I'll give you an example. Aligned Credit Union. Sumit Grover is a very close. Sumit is a CDO and CMO of Aligned. They are one of the top 10 credit unions right now. Aligned decided that they'll go big. They increased the asset size by 40% in the last 3 years. They are
wow.
more than $20 billion credit union right now. Okay. So we should draw inspiration from community financial institutions of trying to break it, right?
Mm,
Break the mindset that we are small and we will remain small forever. I think two things. One, for community banks have usually been focused towards small business lending, towards it's more B2B than B2C.
mm,
This mindset, I think, has to change a bit, maybe reinvent business models a bit. Why can't a bank that serves B2B consumers
mm,
think about retail and not just wealth? So I think that mindset has to change or diversify your portfolio, diversify your products.
mm,
One. Second, again, piggybacking on the first thing, right? That mindset, that psyche has to change. You cannot think that you're a small teeny bank located in New York or in Utah or in Houston, anywhere. It doesn't matter. If you're in a small little place, you're a think global. You have to still think that, it doesn't matter if I'm in one of the remotest place, but at the end of the day, I still compete with a Chime. I still compete
mm,
with a Robinhood. I still compete with all fintechs. Or I compete with a Chase because opening account doesn't need anyone to walk into the branch of a big bank nowadays. It happens by
yeah.
uh, tap or click. So that change of mindset has to happen. I know it's easier
Mm,
said than done. The investments that the others have, we don't have that for at disposal. But what we have at the minimum is that mindset. If you can start changing that mindset, I think a lot can be done. I mean, you can go raise funds, you can go look at target multiple different customers or consumers. Again, diversify your product portfolio. So I think broad things, it will take some time. It won't happen in a
mm,
year's time. No, both of us know it will take some time, maybe the next few years. But I'm confident, that the way how we are walking into and having the fintech ecosystem with us very closely working together, I think
mm.
the FinServe and fintech can work together to make a better tomorrow.
Fantastic. I think there's a very common, I'll say stereotype in the community banking world where if it hasn't broken, don't fix it, or just a very almost stagnant type of approach where there's been considerable like lack of innovation and just acceptance for things as they are and no foresight into how things will change and are changing. And I think you said something very key to that, which is you need to dream big, essentially, like shoot high. Like you want to have that ambition. And I think that's aspirational, but I also think it's necessary. As you look at the product offerings offered from bigger banks, they're becoming higher quality in some sense, which their technology enables them to basically take out any community bank. But the reverse is true. Community banks can also be online. We're in that digital age, and with AI, that's increasing incredibly fast. And I think that's amazing. But for the banker who's stubborn and is like, nah, like I just need to stay with these small business loans. I don't need an online presence. We're doing just fine. How do you change their mindset?
I think, again, looking at the broader picture, right, that
Mm,
why do you change? It's not only revenue. Revenue
mm,
cannot only be the driver because at the end of the day, be it the banking C levels or boards, they're making good money.
mhm,
Anyway, is it right? In order to make the entire ecosystem dream of that ambition that yes, you can be the sexiest bank of your state. So I think
mm.
that dream is important for any financial institution in my 2 cents. And that
Yeah,
is not just driven by money, but driven by the way how you can service your consumers around you, the way how you can take active part in local economy building, the way in which you can dream to help more people get their first mortgages. This has to be driven, this is partially driven by yes, balance sheet is important, PNL is important, world is
mm,
capitalistic, it's not something else, that's reality. But there has to be also a broader vision and a purpose. That yes, I'm doing it because I want to actually help. For example, you know, 20% first, I mean, folks who have their first job in Utah get their first car. Something of that. I mean, there has to be a broader
yeah,
vision, not just looking at your PNL. I mean, that's what I think. Once,
mm,
and I think going forward, Noah, at least as generations are uh, proceeding, right? Today's world, sustainability is a very important thing. Sustainability is very important thing. A
yeah,
purpose towards anything is very important. We just don't work for numbers. We work for
yeah,
a broader purpose. Both you and me, right? We work for a broader
yeah.
purpose. If that works out, we work for you. Otherwise, we don't. I think when people like me and you are alikes come in, magic will happen. And I strongly dream one day that yes, community banking is sexy, will be sexy, and will again be sexy in the next 10 years.
I love it. That's fantastic. You need to make some swag, like make community banking sexy again or something like that. I think that
I'll
would
do
be
a
great.
t-shirt, maybe I'll do a t-shirt. Make community banking sexy and I'll walk them across.
I love it. That's fantastic. And it rings true, of course. Like I think it's fantastic. You're the flag bearer for that change, that shift in mentality. I think it can happen. I think, like you said, it will take time, but the more people that you can recruit, you've recruited me, the more people you can recruit, the faster it will happen. And I think that speed is necessary because, like you said, people like our generations, like and younger for sure, but like our generation, like the priorities have shifted to where it is not just about money. Like that's obviously a massive part for a lot of people. But like you said, if your only motive, only driver is to see increase in revenue or just growth for the sake of growth, you're going to miss out on a lot. And I want to talk about that a little bit more because you hinted at this as you were explaining your story. Or I shouldn't say hinted, it was a theme of your story of finding that alignment from your professional life with your personal goals, ambition, and meaning, which of course led you to solving this problem and working to create this. Tell me more about how you reevaluated what you were doing, how you were able to align that meaning with what you were doing. Because I think that's something that a lot of people struggle with. I know I've struggled with that in the past. I like to understand how you found such clarity.
So there was a inflection point in my career, two of them. One was, I remember a day when I was creating an Excel sheet tracker to track all my trackers. I was like, no, this is not something which I want to do. I'm not someone who will have a tracker to track everything in my life. No, I'm not this guy. I am much more than this. I want to do something more that's meaningful. That was an inflection point in my life that I decided, no, this is not what I'll do, but I'll actually do something solid that brings a revolution or a change in any small possible way that I'll do, but I'll do that. That's one. And second, maybe it was an inner purpose of my life that I mean, I like connecting to people. I mean, when a kid reaches out to me after the university and asks me, Anurag, can you help me get a job? I at least try my best to connect that kid to 10 different people. I always try to build a network and help other people build network. And I realized if I combine both of them together, the purpose or the vision of doing something that can actually see an impact in what I'm doing, plus building a network effect to gather around what I've thought about. I think both of them combined can do wonders. It was like again last year I was back to India for like 10 days in Goa. That's a small beach town in India. Literally, I was sipping my martini. Sorry, my beer. I don't do a lot of martinis. Sipping my beer to figure out what do I want from life. I got these two answers. Why don't you marry both of them? Then I was like, okay, but people don't know me. What do I do about it? Started this podcast all of a sudden. I didn't expect that people will actually love it. And then I realized the value of being genuine, the value of telling stories, the value of supporting a cause. So I think these broadly two or three levers actually pushed me to do whatever I'm doing today. And I love every single day. I mean, every day, 7 a.m. in the morning is what I love starting the day with another new day, with another new vision. But yes, with that same motto of helping community financial institutions grow and succeed.
Hmm. That's fantastic. And I appreciate you sharing how personal that is because really it stems from who you are as a person. Like you want to help other people. You want to make an impact. There's a lot of ways that people can help people make an impact, but the way that you have chosen and pursued to make that impact and take care of other people and help them is in finance. And that's one of the most direct ways I feel like you can make that impact and to care about people. And what you say is also very true. Like as someone who has networked with you and gotten to know you, like you are very caring and you help a lot of people. And I think really when we both were at the Financial Brand Forum this year, and I remember several different moments at that where they were talking about change and innovation, which is where I had the idea for my podcast. And I was like, like how important is it to to make your voice known? You said something to the effect like you make a unique impact in whatever you do, and you can choose what that is or not. And I remember taking that away, and it's probably a moment you don't even remember. It might have been very in passing, like we had a few in passing moments there for sure, and but I took that very to heart, and has really guided me since then on being more transparent and being like, no, this is really what I think, this is really what I believe, but then also allowing that to impact my professional life and my career. So first of all, I wanted to thank you for that. But I also
Absolutely.
I wanted to ask you like what do you see most often helps those people that go to you for help? Like maybe like in networking or career, like you if you had three lessons and it's like, hey, for all the college kids that are going to connect with me on LinkedIn after this, or for all those people, like here's three things, three principles I wish you knew.
Love what you do. That's
Mm,
rule one. Because, I mean, one thing I've realized in my engineering school that, I mean, somehow I didn't like doing it, right? I mean, those 4 years were amazing. I was doing everything apart from sitting in the class.
mm,
So I promised myself the day I graduated that, Anurag, this is no more academics. This is life. Do what you love doing. Otherwise, you cannot sustainability is still far. You won't be able to do it unless you love doing it. That's one.
mm,
Second is be authentic, right? I mean, it doesn't need a lot of effort to be authentic. I mean, just be authentic to people. I
mm,
mean, that I hate being double faced. I cannot be. So second is being authentic, and third is again never forget your roots. I mean, just an example, right? I almost talk about my roots every single place I go. I'm from India. I'm from a very small little town back in India, literally very small little town back in India. I had to struggle my way out. I mean, I'm not from a city back in India like a Mumbai or a Delhi. I'm from a very small little town. Third is again, remember your roots. But at the end of the day, if you forget those roots, I mean, I cannot respect someone who has forgotten their roots. It doesn't matter if you stay in New York or you stay in Mars, but remember where you're from. And that
mm,
helps you keep you level set up, right? It doesn't matter if you're delivering the keynote at My 2020, financial brand, but still you're the same person who were 30 years back, right? So I think
mm.
these are the three things which I would say or tell to any college kid. I would rather want to add one more: fear to dream. If you dream,
Mm.
you'll be able to do it. I mean, being very candidly, Noah, I was one
Yeah.
of the what do we call a 6 pointer. So you got a point, you get 6 out of 10 in an engineering school in India. That's horrible. I was a six
Okay.
pointer, right? So grades don't really matter. Doesn't really matter. Your grades don't really define you. They don't really matter. The most important thing is, yes, feel free to dream. Feel free
Mm,
to take things head on and just don't talk. I mean, there's another broad thing. I mean, I want to write a book on is how to get things done. Right? Don't wait for others to go get things done. If you can,
mm,
go get things done. You have to be operationally very good because again, I mean, to quote someone, there's a huge cosmetic brand back in India called Sugar. The CEO of Sugar, Vinita, she says one thing that every single human being has an amazing idea, but it's not the idea that takes you ahead. It's the
mm,
execution that takes you ahead. So my fourth
mm.
point will be yes, dream, do not just dream, execute. Right?
Yeah.
Unless you execute it, it will be again a concept on the paper. So I think these are the
Yeah.
four things which I would have told myself 9 years back when I graduated out of engineering school.
Yeah. Wow. I think that's a crash course on how to live your life. Thank you everyone for listening. That's awesome. And it reminds me of a quote from Les Brown. He's a inspirational speaker and I take a lot of my personal values from him. And he said, dreams are just dreams without goals, and you'll never achieve them unless you start to take that action. And I think that's exactly what you're saying. You can have the best idea. You can know exactly what's going to fix the world. You can know what the problem is. You could know that community banks need support with data and that they need to do better and that there's something to be done there and there's something to make it personalized. And all that means nothing if you don't do it, if you don't actually execute and take action. And I think that is a disconnect that a lot of people have. I feel like just from my experience, like there's a lot of people that say just dream big, and then when it comes to do the hard work, they disappear. They're gone. They have a lot of ambition, but they don't have a lot of grit, a lot of hard work. And then you have the people that are like, it doesn't matter if you like what you do, just grind through every single day. And if you hate your life, that's fine, get a paycheck. And I think your ability to connect the hard work with that ambition, with that dream and meaning and purpose is what's key to actually making change happen.
Absolutely no. I mean, one set of people I never can relate to are critics, right? There are
Mm,
problems in every single thing they do. I mean, you write an article on LinkedIn, they have problems in what you've written. You
yeah.
do any single thing, right? There will be critics. I mean, that's one group of people I can't relate to. I'm like, okay, I mean, guys, I mean, obviously, no offense to any analysts per se,
Sure.
they are amazing. That's great. But guys, go execute it. Let's not just talk. If you can do
Mm,
it, go execute it. Right. So that's what I think. If you can, if you've identified a problem, amazing. Write an article about it. But can you go and execute? If yes, let's talk. Otherwise, let's not. I mean, generic things are good, but when you want to go get things done, that's where the actual action starts.
yeah, fantastic. It's like there are people who, I forget who said this, so I'll have to edit it in, but there are people who make things happen, people who watch things happen, and people who wonder what happens. And you want to be the person that makes things happen.
I hope so. No, that's what my one single aim and dream is, to get things done. Right.
Mm,
That's what I want to do. Let's not just talk.
mm. That's great. Do you feel that's taught in the academic world? Like you mentioned, you wanted to solve problems, not just hypothetical situations. Is this
Yeah.
taught in the academic world? And if not, should it be?
No, definitely they're not taught. Right. Otherwise, we would have had the most and the beautiful and the most perfect education system over the world,
Yeah.
which is not for any reality. Right. Academics don't teach you how to file your taxes, do they? They don't. Do
Mm,
academic teach you how to pay your water bills? Not really. Or your credit card
mm,
bills. Or maybe does academic teach you how to evaluate and save for your first mortgage? I wish they would have taught us, right? But they didn't.
yeah.
So I think yes. I mean, you need to have a decent enough academic background to have that for me, aptitude is the most important thing. It doesn't
Mm,
matter. Your grades don't matter to me. If you have that aptitude, that's all you require, right? It doesn't matter which school do you go to. If you have that
yeah.
aptitude, you'll go figure out things on your own. But as a whole, if talking about uh, are we being taught that? In my two
Mm,
cents, no. And maybe things will change. Right now, I'm just forgetting the name of the learning, experiential learning. There's a concept called
mm,
experiential learning that's happening, right? The way
mm,
how academics is looked at right now, things are changing. Things are becoming
mm,
much more practical. I think in the next 20 to 30 years, or might be in the next 30 years, 40 years, things will change. It's slow for a reason. It's slow, but yes,
mm,
I strongly believe that people like me and you who believe that yes, things should change and it should be more real world than bookish. They will push forward. One of the Anurags will come in academia to change the way how academia is today. It just needs one single power. I mean, that's what I believe, right? Be it Lincoln to any leaders like Gandhi, it took just one single spark to change whatever is needed, right? And I would highly recommend everyone to watch this ad. I mean, by the way, my motivation for my new podcast, the Outlier podcast, came from a
mhm.
ad, by the way, right? By Apple. This is called Think Different ad. Think Different. I mean, just go and YouTube it. Think Different by Apple. Talks about, yes, there are troublemakers, there are round pegs and square holes, people who do not fit the mold. But those are the people who change the world. They're the people who push the human race forward, and you need
That's right.
them. I think
Mhm.
yes, it's again, maybe someone will come and change, but right now it's not happening. It will take some time. Long story short.
That's fantastic. So motivational. You're getting me pumped up now. It's sometimes taken for granted how incredible it is the fact that you came to New York. You live in New York. You're in the United States. You came from a small town in India. You have an education. Like that takes so much hard work. And yet you're still preaching, do what you love. I think that's awesome. And I think that's part of that evolutionary principle, which is you need to push things forward or you're going to stagnate and fall behind. And I wish more people had your mentality when it comes to that, because I think that's critical. I think it's critical for growth, for change, innovation, but then also you mentioned earlier in our conversation about having that competitive desire, that competitive edge. Like banks should
Yeah.
be competing, they should have that dream. And so I think all of this rings true. What my question is then is if I'm not someone who has the motivation to be driven and oriented like that, If I'm someone who's dragging my feet, I clock in, clock out, or I'm someone that's like, yeah, it doesn't really matter what I do. There's a lot of depressed young men right now. There's a lot of really struggling people. What would you say to them, seeing how important and impactful the reverse of that attitude is? What would you say to those people?
So, no, one thing I believe that no human being can be demotivated ever. You are
Mm,
demotivated because you haven't found your cause, you haven't found your calling,
mm,
you're not been able to do something that you love doing. I mean, there's a very common thing that talks about if you ask elephant to climb
yeah.
up a tree, that will never happen. If you ask a fish to walk
Mm,
down, will it ever happen? It won't happen. So I think, firstly, again, take a sip of money, go to a beach and reevaluate. Then what
mm,
is it that you like doing? Do you want to learn guitar and do you want to start a band? I mean, these are hypothetical, but still,
sure.
ask yourself. I mean, again, to this question of self-exploration is what I believe, Noah, is
Mm,
not professionally, but I think people should ask themselves that what is something that they like doing? I mean, what is
mm,
something they can wake up in the night and do?
mm,
Right? For me, I can wake up in the night and network. I love doing it, right? So if you can find something that is closely related to what their passion is, work is
mm,
never a work. I mean,
mm,
very similar. I mean, if you ask, I mean, I'm not comparing myself with a Messi or a Ronaldo, but still, if Ronaldo would have thought of not playing football and becoming a school teacher, he wouldn't have been Ronaldo, right? So again, that same thing. Find your calling. If you haven't found out, explore. Go solo vacations. Go to the mountains. Go think
mm,
what you want to do. It might not be something that's linked to your career. I started this podcast no out of nowhere. It had nothing
mm,
to do with what I do at EXL. I wanted to become an event manager. I wanted to become a journalist by the long back. That was there
yeah.
with me, but I could never become because of societal pressure, because of my mom and dad didn't want me to do that, right? But when
Mm,
I thought that now can I do it, maybe give it a try because this is what I want to do forever, right? I
yeah.
did it. This is one of the biggest exposure that I got in ever in my life of talking to 50 C-level leaders of banks within 10 months. So I
Wow.
think that's again,
Yeah.
figuring out what you want to do. For me, it was like going out there, helping people, meeting people. Again,
Mm,
long story short, but again, for for young people or for any people for anyone at any age, right, at any age itself, right?
mm,
Self exploration is very important. First, decide what you love doing. It might not align with your professional goal right now, but at least start taking a step towards that.
mm.
If you can do that, I believe that will be a good first step.
Okay. Fantastic. So really almost pursuing self-actualization through that self-reflection.
Yeah, that's important
Mm.
in my 2 cents. I would say.
Absolutely. Hey, we're here to talk about your 2 cents. So I think that's, I think that self-reflection is key though. Like something that I study in my free time is like human behavior. It kind of impacts what I do for work. It's not directly tied to it, but it is like that, the evolution of human needs. And the top of that is self-actualization. And a
Yep,
lot of times people get stuck. I think it's like on the second level, which is just like, you have your food and shelter and safety, and then you have a little bit of stability, and they stop there.
exactly.
And I think what you say is true. Like to the guy who is on his couch, maybe listening to this, and it's like, man, I just don't feel like going into work today. Well, maybe that's because you haven't self-reflected enough that you're actually not self-actualizing in your life. Maybe you need to listen to what Anurag is saying. And if there's that lack of motivation, maybe figure out what would pull out that motivation, what would pull out that drive. Because at the end of the day, you're going to do hard work. You got a grit. So why not be doing it for something that you will be motivated to do and you will want to do? And I think that's powerful. That's a powerful concept that is missing from, at least I feel like is missing from modern day corporate America, at least. Like it's not there as much as it needs to be. So I think, needless to say, as you hold the flag and you run with it for improving community banking, you're going to see a lot of ripple effects from that in terms of the mentality that you shared. Because it's not just making cool, unique personalization, sexy community banks. It's also are you driving with the motivation of what self-actualizes you or what actualizes your true meaning, purpose, and desire in life? And I think that's a great message to share.
Thank you, Noah.
Of course. I want to I want to be respectful of your time. I appreciate your willingness to meet with me and to talk about all these things. I realize the Why Not podcast can go in a lot of different directions, and I think today this was a very inspiring and helpful direction. My last two questions for you is I'd love for you to tell me a little bit more about what you're doing with your two podcasts in terms of where people can find you, what you're hoping to accomplish so that they can go support. And then I'll have a concluding question for you.
Sure. So I run a podcast. One is Women of Community Banking, where my single one mission is to share journeys of women leaders
Mm,
of credit unions and community banks, because I strongly feel that women is or female leaders are not well represented in
mm,
financial institutions. And I want to break that, right? I want to bring more stories out. I want to motivate people in the early 20s, people in the early 30s, female leaders to dream big, to dream that you can have a seat in the table.
mm,
That's more important. That's the main intent of that podcast. So you'll find it on LinkedIn, Women of Community Banking. Similarly, by same name on YouTube, on Instagram, on Twitter. We are not very active, but yeah, broadly these three. That's the first one. Second is there's another podcast which we talked about. Was
mm,
inspired by the ad of Apple. Think Different, where I want to interview outliers. Outliers typically are people. I mean, okay, again, this has to do with my background of data and analytics. So in analytics, when if there's a data point that's not there in the vicinity of the normal pattern or the normal, I would say, trends, if it's like very different, it's called an outlier. And we
mm,
usually try to exclude outliers. But I thought that, okay, let's not exclude outliers, but let's look into outliers differently. That's the way
mm,
how I think about it. So I
yeah.
could marry that when I watched the ad of Think Different of Apple. They respect outliers. They respect people who do not fit into the mold.
Mm,
So I thought of, why not honor the outliers? Because I'm not an outlier, but I would want to become an outlier. Being a 6 pointer and doing something that I love, I'm thankful to people around for letting me be outlier. So the
mm,
second was again building the podcast The Outlier, where I interview people who might strongly think are outliers. For example, I'm interviewing John by the way next week because
oh,
he has a
awesome.
story to talk about. He has a
Yeah.
story to talk about coming to the country. It was not easy. Building it up, not easy. Right? Staying in Utah, not easy. The entire thing,
Yeah.
right? It's not easy. So he has an amazing journey to talk about. So yeah, so that's the second
Yeah.
podcast called The Outlier. Now it's just available on LinkedIn because we just aired one single episode. It's called The Outlier Podcast. So these are
Okay.
two podcasts that I do. Feel free to give your support and let us know how do you like.
I love it. I'll make sure to link both of those into the description of this episode so that people can find them easily because you're doing great work. Yeah, doing great work. Focusing on the outliers is motivating and women in community banking, like their voices need to be heard. Those stories are powerful. Those stories are important. And as we look towards the future and towards changing the future by changing today, that's the work that needs to be done. So
Yeah,
thank you for
sure.
sharing that. My concluding question for you today, good sir,
Sure.
is what does happiness mean to you?
And by the way, everyone should know that this podcast was completely unscripted, right? I didn't literally
Yeah.
spend a minute to prepare any answers. Happiness, right? Interesting. So this reminds me when I was like 18 or 19. So there's a movie called, I'm sure you watched the movie, Pursuit of Happiness, where
Yeah.
happiness is HAPPYNESS, not HAPPI. It's Y. So
Mm,
I possibly have watched that movie like 20 times at least.
nice.
So I think happiness is the small moments.
Mm,
Happiness is being happy with those small moments.
mm,
Happiness is very overarching, right? People,
mm,
it's very relative. People become happy by earning $1 billion. People become happy by having fame. People become happy by actually doing an impact. So I think for me personally, if you ask me what is happiness, obviously all of us have to pay our bills. Let's not just be platonic and talk about we don't need money. We need money, that's for sure. You need money to have a lifestyle, that's for sure. And earn a lot of money. That's very important. But for me, happiness is the impact. If I'm able to make this world a better place, that's what I want to do. Be it by helping community financial institution, be it sending another kid to school, be it getting someone have their regular meals which they can't afford. So happiness is that helping others and making small changes or other small incremental changes every single day by which the world gets motivated to come across and to make a better, happier place for all of us to stay. Yep, that's happiness for me.
Fantastic. And I'm happy to see you achieving that happiness and on the road towards that. That's fantastic. Well, thank you, Anurag, for being on the Why Not podcast. And thank you for all
Absolute
you
pleasure.
do. And we'll talk soon. Thank you so much, my friend.
So thank you.
Yeah.
Have a good one.
Bye. You as well.